What is up, guys? Rick Cacus here, and today we have a brand new Anthem update discussing the latest information on BioWare's new game. And so, let's get started. But just before we do, guys, one of the best parts about Anthem is the audio and the sound design, and this is coming from someone who has played Anthem multiple times. Honestly, it's hard to get kind of a picture from what it's like during a trailer because there's background music and chatter, but when you're actually playing the game, the gunshots, the explosions, the sounds of the hydraulics on your suit working as you move, when you sprint, the thrusters on your back literally sound like a jet engine. The sound design is unbelievable. And if you want to experience that fully, you gotta have a good pair of headphones. And if you want a good pair of headphones, definitely the best quality out there, the ones I use and highly recommend, is ASTRO. Now, I've partnered with them, so just click the link in the description down below. Save some money and help me out. That's a definition of a win-win right there. But moving on from there, something I really wanted to do in this video is break down what exactly is coming with Anthem. What content do you gain access to when you buy Anthem? Because there's been so many different sources out there and the gameplay has been from different sources. We have stuff like Strongholds and then regular missions, and there's a storyline, but like, what is there truly to do when you start up Anthem? Well, let's break it down. Firstly, you have the critical path, or essentially the campaign. Anthem will have a campaign, it will have a beginning, and it will have an ending. So there will be, a climax and probably what'll accumulate in a boss fight. Now that is just speculative, but come on, it's a video game. And then the campaign will end. Now this campaign, along with literally everything else in Anthem, is multiplayer, in the sense that you can join up with friends or matchmake for other people, play with them up to a group of 4 through all this content. So if you want to play with your friends through the campaign, you will be definitely able to do so. But for you solo players out there, you can definitely play the campaign start to finish solo, and it should be no problems. I'm sure some parts are going to be more challenging than if you had a group, but again, it is very soloable. At least that's what BioWare has stated. Now, as you play this campaign, you will still be participating in the overall leveling experience of Anthem. Don't think of this campaign as very, very separate from the overall experience, because when you're doing the Anthem campaign, you should still be leveling up, collecting loot for your character, collecting gear, all of that stuff. And then once the campaign is done, you're really opened up into the world and you have a lot more to do and access, and there is a pretty big end game apparently in Anthem. In fact, BioWare is constantly referring to it as the Elder Game, because they're saying that it doesn't really end. There is no end point. It constantly continues and gives you always things to do. I mean, that sounds pretty darn good. But what are these other things? Well, one of the things that you can do in Anthem aside from the campaign is just quests. Now, quests will likely become available during the campaign as well, then you can go off and do a side quest and stuff like that. But this is very, very vague. We don't have too much information on these right now. We don't necessarily know the scope and scale of all of them, and likely different quests will definitely vary in their scope and scale. You might have a quest that basically is a full mission, and you may have another one that's just go and collect a certain amount of resource or something like that, or go kill a certain target. But there are going to be NPCs or potentially other ways to get essentially quests or missions that will take you off the beaten path, and you can go and do these side quests that are again separate from the campaign. Now, that's kind of what we would expect with pretty much any RPG. There's side quests. Now, Anthem's quests will likely function similar to quests in other RPGs. There'll be some a little bit more meant for the end game, I'm sure, and they're gonna award you with, levels and experience just to get your character forward, and also gear, potentially resources, and so on. So, you have the campaign so far, then you have just quests, but there's also going to be a whole nother mode called free play. Now, free play is really Anthem's exploration mode. It's kind of like patrol mode from Destiny, but way better. So, in Anthem's free play mode, you go out into the world and kind of do what you want. Now, just like in Destiny, you will be automatically match made with other people if you do go out solo. So, when you're doing some sort of event, like a big monster spawns and you're fighting this guy, another freelancer can come across you and help you out in this kind of public event. Now, we do know that Anthem will have its own version of Destiny's public events, things that in free play can spawn like these big events that can go on, enemies attacking bases and other enemies and stuff like that, and then you as a freelancer can go in and do that public event, do that world event, and if you do complete it, you will be rewarded with loot. But something really awesome about Anthem's free play is that, unlike Destiny that has all these different destinations, then you can go and do patrol mode on Earth, but if you want to go to Titan, you have to load to a different planet altogether, watch your ship for a couple of minutes. But in Anthem, it's all one massive world around Fort Tarsis. You can go anywhere. So you can potentially go from one side of the world in free play all the way to the other side of the world. You can start doing circles around Fort Tarsis, explore literally the entire world of Anthem. All of it is at your fingertips. There is no... I don't want to say there's no loading screens whatsoever because I don't know that, but there's going to be no separation of these different locations. It's all one big world. And in this big world, it has been confirmed that there are plenty of secrets and things to uncover within the free play mode. And honestly, free play sounds like the perfect mode to play when you're just chilling. Like you have an hour before you want to go to sleep and you don't want to do anything super sweaty, but you still want to potentially get some sweet loot and accomplish stuff. Well, just go into free play, explore the world, do some world events and stuff like that, and then just casually get off. It sounds like just a perfect activity for those times that you don't want to be doing something super, super intense. But speaking of something super, super intense, there's another separate activity that you can do within Anthem. So again, right now we have the critical path, or essentially the campaign. Then we have separate quests. Then we have the free play mode. And after that, we also have Strongholds. Now, Strongholds have been mentioned quite a few times. What are they really? Well, they're kind of like Anthem's versions of dungeons, Anthem's versions of strikes in Destiny, their own like separate mission experience, but much harder than Destiny's strikes and much more rewarding than Destiny's strikes. Maybe more comparable to Destiny's Nightfalls, but kind of without the modifications. Strongholds are going to be one of the main Elder game activities for Anthem. If you are max level, you're geared up, you want to be doing Strongholds, and I guess to get geared up, you want to be doing Strongholds as well. But you will likely be doing these other things with the campaign, then some missions and some free play and stuff before you are leveled up enough and geared up enough to do Strongholds. Although, interestingly, these things will not necessarily all have set difficulties. We've seen in Anthem screenshots that you can change the difficulty of certain missions. Now again, we don't know necessarily if these just apply to Strongholds or they'll also apply to like quests and other side missions as well. Likely both, but that's a big factor. Doing a Stronghold on the easiest difficulty, and it's going to probably award you with a certain amount of loot or a certain chance of getting the best loot, but then you can really climb the ranks, gear up, level up, and all that stuff, and then you can start ascending the difficulty as you please, try to do that maximum difficulty, somewhat like the difficulties within Diablo 3, and the higher the difficulty, the better the reward, and that's a huge factor, right? You know, in Destiny, for example, there's only really one kind of Nightfall. Well, there's a Nightfall, then there's Prestige Nightfall, but there's no difficulty 1, 2, there's no easy, hard, insane, super insane, Torment, Torment 1, Torment 2, but in Anthem, they have the ability to do that. You can really adjust the difficulty scale of these Elder game activities based on how really talented and how geared up you are, and you should be able to get rewards based on those difficulties, which is a really awesome thing for replayability. Additionally, you will have to have a party of 4 people to take on a Stronghold, but luckily, unlike Destiny's endgame activities like Nightfalls and Raids, you don't have to just get friends. There is built-in matchmaking for Strongholds, and that's a big sigh of relief for people who don't have a flooded friends list. So, to me, that's sounding pretty decent, and sounding like a decent amount of content to do and experience with Anthem. However, we won't know until we actually get the game. Hopefully it's not kind of like a Division or a Destiny 2 where we run out of things to do, but I don't think so, because there's actually one more thing I haven't mentioned, and that is post-launch content. Now, we don't know too much about this post-launch content, but we know absolutely that it's going to come, that Anthem will deliver content hopefully pretty soon after launch that will be free to all players. BioWare has really stressed that this content in terms of new areas, new activities, all of that stuff, new story, is all going to be free. And from the sounds of it, the post-launch content Anthem is going to provide will be substantial, and hopefully will also have limited time events, somewhat like Iron Banner or faction rallies in Destiny, things that appear, you can do them for a certain period of time, and then they go away. And of course, these limited time events are offering exclusive loot for participating in them. Now again, although it certainly seems likely that Anthem would provide that style of content, it is still kind of speculation. We do not know for sure. Anthem isn't even out yet, and we're talking about post-launch content. But I really wanted to mention this because, again, BioWare has been so stressing the fact that they will be adding more content after launch, and it will be free to all players. And that's, a huge benefit. You want that constant stream of content. You don't want a game to drop, and maybe it doesn't have that much to do, kind of like a Destiny 2, and then you're waiting, several months until a DLC. Oh, and by the way, you have to shell out $20 for that DLC as well. That's not necessarily the best approach. The Anthem approach does sound much more, awesome, frankly. So, that's what Anthem is offering players to do, but when you're doing that stuff, how do you level up? What does the character progression look like? Well, we don't know everything so far, but we do know quite a few things. Firstly, your level is based on your freelancer, the actual bag of meat, per se, that goes inside the javelin. So, your actual, human character, not the suits itself. And you can level up your person, your freelancer, and provide skills that apply to all of the different suits. For example, we know that you can have certain skills that allow you to improve your flight abilities, like allowing you to fly further without overheating. And we also know that the level of your freelancer will determine the level of the loot drops in the world. So if you're level, hypothetically 20 in your freelancer, and you just unlocked the Storm Javelin, and you're hyped up and you want to try it out, well, you're going to get into that Storm Javelin, and you should still be getting level 20 loot for that Storm Javelin. One of the best parts about Anthem, in terms of it having these separate classes, in essence of the separate suits, is that you don't have to level them all up individually. Like in Destiny, you have to play the entire campaign as the Hunter, and if you want to make a Titan, you got to play the whole thing again. And it can be a little tedious. But in Anthem, your main character, your freelancer, is the level that determines all the drops in the world. So you can get a brand new suit, hop into that suit, and you still will have to gear up that suit with loot drops in the world, but you won't necessarily have to level up that new suit all over again. Now, speaking of gear, we know that there's going to be 2 different weapon slots for all of the different javelins. So no matter if you're the Ranger or the Colossus or the Interceptor or the Storm, you will have 2 different weapon slots. So if you want to run, an SMG and a sniper rifle, or an assault rifle style of gun and a pistol, you can definitely do that. Now, 2 slots doesn't, necessarily seem like a ton per se, but remember, this is just the weapons that you shoot, the weapons that you're literally holding in your hands. There's also going to be separate gear pieces for your suit's abilities, your suit's skills per se. So if we have something like the Colossus, we saw it use its mortar pod. Well, that mortar pod ability is actually a gear piece, and you can get several different gear pieces that change the behavior of your mortar pod. So we saw the normal, just high explosive mortar, and we also saw a multi-mortar that shoots a bunch of mortars at once. And likely there will be even more crazier mortars, and there's also going to be mortars of different rarities, like the rarity scale of, common, uncommon, legendary, epic, ancient, all that stuff applies to weapons as you probably thought it would, but it also applies to these gear skills. So you don't just have different mortars you can get, you have different mortars you can get that all come in these different rarities. So you can have legendary mortars that are doing crazy things. So we have 2 loot slots for guns. We then have likely 2, potentially more, but 2 ability gear slots for the javelins, all the javelins we've seen so far, and during my playtime, you have 2 kind of offensive abilities that are filled up by the gear slots. So again, for the Colossus, you have the mortar, then you have something on your wrist. Now this could be a flamethrower, this could be a rail gun. For the Ranger, you had a grenade, and then you had kind of a pulse cannon on your arm. And even something like the Storm, which is using elemental abilities. Like at E3, I saw it shoot out ice spikes out of its hands at people. Those still count as a gear ability. So you can get ice spikes and potentially other gear sets that maybe give you, a lightning strike or a fireball. I'm just spitballing here. Other kind of likely elemental abilities. It seems like the Storm class is an elemental style of javelin that's going to be able to use those different abilities. So 2 offensive gear slots for sure, potentially more if there's some sort of passive abilities, and potentially more if you can have different kind of armor pieces on your javelin itself, like get different legs and so on, that are going to provide bonuses as well. Now, that stuff hasn't been confirmed, but it's at least 2, possibly more. And so guys, that's it for today's Anthem update. Want to focus really on what exactly your experience is probably going to be like in Anthem, what you're going to play, and how you're going to play it. And so, if you enjoyed the video, found it informative, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Anthem content, be sure to slap that subscribe button. And if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.